Hi, Mrs. Gates here. We are going to be looking at how to create a data table in a Google Sheet and make a graph that you can then import into your lab report. Go ahead and get your data handy so you can follow along as we go through the instructions. Once you have your Google Sheet opened, you're going to go ahead and start entering your data. You need to enter your data in columns so that the left-hand column is your independent variable and your right-hand column is the dependent variable. The data that I'm starting with is the height and the age for an elephant measured over a 15-year span. So I have the age, that's the independent variable in the left-hand column. The height is in the right-hand column. And if you notice the numbers that I've typed in those spots for the data, I've just typed numbers with no units. Now, in science, units are incredibly important, and so we need to include them, but we are going to include them in the header where we've written the variable. So here where we have age, I'm going to enter the unit that this is measured in years. Same thing for the height. I'm going to enter the height is in meters. That way, we have our units included, but the Google Sheet will recognize that these are numbers and not words. All right, now to going to making our graph. In order to make the graph, we highlight the cells that have the data that we're looking at, go up to the menu at the top where it says Insert, and we want to insert a chart. So we click on Chart, and Google Sheet does a lot of the thinking for us. It looks at the things we've entered. It says these top rows look like headers. That looks like the labels for our data. And these all look like numbers. And one of the best ways to display numerical data is in a scatter plot. And so that's what it's done. Now, since it did a lot of the thinking for us, it's a good idea to double check that the things it did is what we want it to do. So look at your axis. On the x-axis, we have age in years. That's what we wanted. On the y-axis, we have the height in meters. That's what we wanted. Now we look at our data point. So here, this looks good, and this data point looks like it is way off. So let's look at what happened here. And when I look back at my data, I see that I actually typed in the data incorrectly. It should have been 1.3, right? But I typed in 13. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit that data point, and I'm going to make that 1.3. And notice what happens to our graph when I change that. Google Sheets recognizes that I changed the data, and it automatically changes and rescales the graph for me. So now my data point looks like it's in line. Now our elephant is growing along, and we have 1.3 as our value, and it rescaled our axis. So that's nice. The last thing I want to double check here is the title of the graph. So notice that it automatically chose a title for us, height versus age. Dependent variable versus independent variable. That's basically what we want, but a couple of things that I would like to change about that. I don't need my units in my title, and I would like it to be a little bit more specific. I would like to be able to say what this is the height and the age of, at least in the title of my graph. So that's where I'm going to come over here to the chart editor on the right-hand side of your page. If this hasn't appeared, if you double click on your graph, you should be able to see the chart editor. So I want to go to Customize, and I would like to customize the chart and axis titles. And it says here what my title is right now, height in meters versus age. I'm going to change that. So I actually have height versus age of an elephant. And that gives my title a little bit more specificity. Let's say your data is not completely numerical. That is, some of it is qualitative instead of quantitative. In this case, the data that I have is about cars, the color of the car versus the speed the car was traveling. The color of the car is qualitative, whereas the speed is quantitative. In this case, a scatter plot will not be able to graph my data. A bar chart would be more appropriate. If I highlight this data and on my Google Sheet go up to Insert, I will still click on Chart, and the Google Sheet will think about what sort of data has been inputted. In this case, it recognizes that the car color is not numerical and automatically makes a bar chart. It's still a good idea to double check that this data looks the way you want it to, that the things on the X and the Y axis match what you would like, and that the title is clear. Once I have the graph exactly the way I want it to look, it's time to put it in my lab report. In order to do that, click on your graph. There's 3 little dots up in the right-hand corner. Click those and copy your chart. Then go to where you would like your chart to be. In this case, I have a Google Doc called My Fabulous Lab Report. I will paste my chart in there, and it gives me 2 options. Link to spreadsheet, which means it will change when you change the spreadsheet, or paste unlinked. I want it to look exactly how it does now, so I'm going to paste unlinked. Click on paste, and now my chart is part of my lab report.